Well, thank you, everybody. First, thank you. I feel a little silly up here being the moderator of this panel on education to a bunch of educators. And so thank you for the efforts you all put in. Jeff asked me to come here and moderate this panel and even MC tonight. So I promised him I'd bring 2 colorful jackets because maybe that's all I have to add. You know, my wife laughed when I told her I was doing this. She reminded me that she was going through my stuff. And I was like, really? You're not allowed to go through. She's like, we've been married 30 years. I can go through your stuff. And she found a paper I wrote when I was in college about if I ever made a bunch of money, what would I do? And I tell you what, it sounded a whole lot like build a charter school. I haven't built a charter school. I am on the board of the Robin Hood organization in New York City, which spends a lot of time with charter schools. I'm a macroeconomic investor, and so I've studied politics and policy my whole life. And I do a lot of philanthropy, and I always start with this poor statement that makes me angry, that today in America, the home of the American dream, where you're supposed to work hard and get ahead, and we're all supposed to start at the same starting line, the single biggest determinant of your success in life is the zip code you're born in. And so with that framework, I feel like Jeff made a good pick because I love this topic and I love what's happening here. And so I'm not sure if Jeff really needs an introduction. His name is all over the sign. But I would tell you, from where I sit, Jeff is probably the best probability-based investor, i.e. gambler, poker player who's turned the skills of understanding what works and what doesn't, what the odds say, into a multi-billion-dollar business, and is certainly Philadelphia's most successful graduate, and but has built a world-class business. And Troy Carter, who I just met, also comes from Philadelphia, and so there's a little Pennsylvania power here. When you look at his resume, he has got all the markings of someone who can create a movement. He is a music executive. He was a manager. He did brands. He's got business experience and built businesses. He was kind of famous for being Lady Gaga's, well, you know, you hate to be defined by Lady Gaga. I love Lady Gaga. But he cares about this issue deeply as well. And so I'm going to start by asking Jeff. Jeff, you've got the resources, the intelligence. Why this?
Thanks, Michael. Is this on? I think the reason is that the foundation of any society is a good education. And in America, you know, we talk about education reform. I'm not really for education reform. I'm for education legalization. And in my mind, when you look at it like through a financial lens, education in America is basically illegal. If you live in a neighborhood like I do, and you pay $25,000 per year in property taxes, and you must send, and you don't want to send your kid to your local school, you don't have to do so. But you must pay your $25,000 in property taxes, and then if you want to go to a private school, it's an extra $30,000 or $35,000. So if you said, you know what, I'm paying my $25,000 in taxes, but I'm going to go to this, I'm going to educate my kid the way I want to do it, and I'm keeping the $25,000. You know, remember, I'm not using the $25,000 of resources. My kid's not going to school, so the city and the state and the township just saved $25,000. If you do that, you go to prison, right? Because it's illegal to do that. That's not your money anymore. That is the state's money. So what I want to change is that criminalization of education. If the money follows the child, then education is legal. If the money follows the teachers' union, and then you have the right to opt out, it appears to be legal. Because yes, you can educate your kid, and if you say to someone education's illegal, you sound like a nutcase. But in fact, it is illegal. You could escape it, but you can't. But if you completely say, I am not dealing with the state at all, I'll pay my money, but I'm not giving it to you, you go to prison. So in looking at like what's the highest return on any investment I can possibly find, nothing comes close to legalizing education. In 1997, I was at a Cato conference. Cato's a libertarian institute. Milton Friedman was there. I was just starting to think, what would I do with my money? Philanthropically, and he said, school choice, that's the most important thing. So if you're a gambler, you try and follow the smart money. Milton Friedman is the smart money. He told me go into school choice. Randy Weingarten disagreed with Milton Friedman. So we have a little bet between Randy Weingarten and Milton Friedman, except Randy Weingarten has a military behind her, and she's going to get the money, and she's not willing to bet and have a fair fight. I want to change that, and that makes it a gigantic political fight, but that's what motivates me.
Troy, why did you get involved?
I think just because I was one of those kids. I went to Huey Elementary School in Philly. I went to Sayre Junior High. I dropped out of West Philly High in 11th grade. Got a GED from Chesapeake Job Corps Center. Single family mom who, made $30,000 a year. And when we were coming up, me and my brothers, Philly was getting kind of crazy. And so she sent me to Job Corps, which was a government-funded program. She sent my brother to a school for veterans kids in Pennsylvania, Scotland School for Veterans Kids, government program. And my older brother went into the Marines. And that was the choices that she had to get her kids off the street. And I got very lucky being able to meet the right people, establish a career, have a mom that was engaged, all of these things, and was able to build a life for me and my family. I have 5 kids, and it's a mixture of public, private, and charter schools. Someone was saying earlier, when kids have different personalities or different interests, but the choice that I had was if I lived in a certain zip code where I could send my kids to public school and not have to worry about it. And when I found out, a mutual friend of ours who I recently met, who's my neighbor in Massachusetts, we were talking, he's a crazy Eagles fan like I am. And we were talking about Philly, and he told me about the Lifeline scholarships. I was like, this is a no-brainer. I did the research, and I'm like, this is a layup. And once I got into it, I saw, they said how the sausage was made. My grandmother used to make this stuff called scrapple.
Anyone from Pennsylvania knows scrapple.
So it's not sausage just made in Philly, it's scrapple. And is worse than sausage. And so, it was eye-opening, and these kids don't have lobbyists. These kids can't afford lobbyists. And if these families really knew what they were up against, it's a shame. So, it got me really engaged, really involved, and, ready for a long-term fight with this.
So, Jeff, how are we going to win that fight in Pennsylvania specific?
Well, I have one idea I think that I'm fostering that I think could change things. When Milton Friedman said the education system is a joke, it's dysfunctional because it wasn't, there was no competition, so it just became lazy and socialist and sloppy. He said that to me in 1997, so it's 26 years later. And since then, the amount of money that we have spent on education, in real terms, inflation-adjusted terms, has doubled. Okay, so as bad as it was in 1997 when Milton Friedman told me to do it, it's gotten twice as bad. The results are the same. We've doubled the amount of money. So, for example, in Philadelphia, it cost $26,000 per kid to send a kid to school. It was $13,000, 25 or 30 years ago. The political way that I see to get this movement going, on steroids, is to say to these parents, we're spending $26,000 a year on you. We're going to give you a $13,000 voucher. Catholic schools in Philadelphia don't cost nearly that much. Charter schools cost about that much. Private schools vary, but that's about the average. The other $13,000, so we can get your vote, is we're going to put it in your account when you're in kindergarten. The kid goes to school, you save the taxpayer $26,000, here's a $13,000 voucher, and with the money that we saved, we're going to give directly to you. So you put $13,000 in the bank in kindergarten. If they invest in Galaxy and Novograts, by the time they graduate kindergarten, they should have between $200,000 and $300,000, real money right now. So one plan is you can go to the school of your choice, which is a million times better, but let's say we agree it's unchanged, plus you get an extra $250,000. You can pay for college, you can buy a house, you can buy a business, you can just have $250,000 to spend any way you damn please. That, I think, will change voters' minds, because we're not having a tax increase, we're not having a spending increase, we're just leaving everything alone except allowing the money to go to the child. The amount of waste and fraud that has built up over the system over the last 25, 30 years is mind-boggling. If we gave that back to the kids, particularly in Philadelphia, these kids are killing themselves, they're joining gangs. There are signs in charter schools in Philadelphia that say, or in regular schools, just make it to your 30. This is an aspirational goal in Philadelphia for a black boy. Live to 30, and then you might make it. I think we can shoot a little higher than that. And if they knew in kindergarten, and their parents knew in kindergarten, that they're graduating with $250,000, their whole life trajectory would be different. They wouldn't be hopeless. They would have a career ahead of them, and they would have money to enhance that career. And the whole cycle of violence and despair and poverty would be ended, and all we got to do is get the votes for this plan, and we can do it. And that's what I'm working on.
Give it up. So, Troy, so this is a little thought experiment that I do in New York City. Now, the numbers might be a little wacky because New York's really expensive, but in New York private school, you send your kid to second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th grade, is roughly $60,000 a year. And in New York, public schools spend about $28,000 a kid.
40.
I'm sorry?
It's 40. 40,000.
40,000 a kid now. And so I always ask my wealthy friends, if you closed your eyes and thought, let's agree with what Jeff said, that in the public school system, there is a tremendous amount of waste. So let's discount that 40 by 30% and say there's only 25 is coming to the kids. And in the private schools, you're getting 60. The kids that grow up around my dinner table, who have two educated parents, who've got friends coming over, who are learning every single night at the dinner table, should they have more spent on them than the kids that are growing up in real distressed neighborhoods? I mean, it feels counterintuitive, like it should be the exact opposite. We should be spending more money on people that are starting from a lower starting point. And so when you think about what should it cost, like what does a good education in America, forget New York City, in America cost? And are we even in the right zip code about how much we're spending on kids? Because it's interesting, this, how you fund charter schools, if it's all from the public. A lot of people say, well, you go to Catholic school or Catholic school, are they spending the right amount? Have you thought at all about, like, what should it cost to educate a kid?
I think it's broad, right? Because you can get an excellent education at home, by the way, online education. So it depends on all of the waste that's in the system. So that question is super broad. In my opinion, it was something that was asked earlier today, where I think I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum. I think artificial intelligence is definitely going to replace teachers. I think it's going to start off as a co-pilot, and it's going to be an excellent co-pilot, but we're going to be at a point where it's not going to replace all teachers, it's going to replace most teachers. You can mark my words on that one. So, and it's going to accelerate pretty quickly. And so the same way actors and writers are negotiating with the studios right now around artificial intelligence, this is going to be the same thing that the teachers unions are going to be negotiating. Trust me on this one. And so the cost of education could potentially, the quality of education and tailored education can go up exponentially, and the costs can drop exponentially. And so in countries around the world where you don't have the same level of bureaucracy or corruption, and they're just trying to do what's best for the kid, but ultimately what's best for their country. Because if you don't have an educated workforce, if you don't have an educated society, if you don't have kids with something to live for or something to do every day, we know what that turns into. And that's what we're seeing right now in Philadelphia. And we're seeing it in every major city right now. And if you noticed over the last 10 years, it's creeping more and more and more into mainstream areas. It's not just happening in Black and Latino neighborhoods anymore. It's creeping into shopping districts and suburban homes and all of these places. So it's going to become a national security issue. So it's something where I feel like if it's not addressed, we'll see this deteriorate rather quickly. And the reality is, we have full control over making a decision now, and that's going to prepare us for a future tomorrow.
I met an entrepreneur here. I mean, that's what's great. There's the 64 quarterfinalists here. We're counting on you people to do it. He's started a classical education school in South Carolina. I said, how much does it cost? He said $6,000 a kid. I said, so do you raise money? What do you do? He goes, no, we break out even on $6,000 a kid in South Carolina. So if you start with the baseline of it was $13,000 30 years ago, and it was fraudulent then, that it could have been done for $6,500. Then it doubled to $26,000. Going back to 13 isn't even fair, but then you're just going back to your normal state of dysfunction. $6,500, if you scramble, is possible. That's what Catholic schools do, and that's what some private schools do, and that's what this guy in South Carolina does. And in this room, there are dozens of entrepreneurs who can do it that cheaply. And if we went out to America, there are tens of thousands of people who have an idea about running a school efficiently that could be done, which is why it's so crucial, as the governor said, to get these ESAs going. They're $8,000 per kid. $8,000 doesn't sound a lot if you're a fancy pants in Manhattan like you, but $8,000 in real America is enough to get you educated in most places, and that would save $400 billion a year, because we currently spend $800 billion. So you ask yourself, why isn't this happening?
Listen, your idea of, I'll say, baby bonds plus vouchers, or plus some charter system, just resonates, because when you're 22 years old or 18 years old, if there's a nest egg for you, you get in a lot less trouble. I mean, that's just every study we've looked at. You've got something to fall back on. It's a little bit the UBI story. This journey you've been on, it says 20 years, 30 years. 30 years. Talk about some of the wins in the last 30 years.
Well, to win, it's nice to get lucky, and we're getting lucky lately. There's been small progress, always much frustrating how much slower than we wanted. But COVID, we got two gigantic breaks. COVID, the parents saw the horror of what's going on. Parents didn't know what was going on. So the teachers' unions got exposed. Their selfishness got exposed, that they wouldn't go back to school, and they stuck these kids at home where they were going to develop all kinds of mental problems. So the fact that your teachers are nice, by and large, doesn't mean the teachers' union is nice by and large. So COVID, really exposed that. And then I think when you add in that, when I went to school, even when my kids went to school, there was very little indoctrination. It was just boring, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And I always hated school, but no one told me about politics or anything like that. And that has changed. So people whose politics are being violated, whose values are being violated, are suddenly motivated. And it's very hard to pull your kid out of the local school and do something else. It takes a lot of guts. It's a big hassle. Most people don't do it. One thing that will motivate them is that when they are indoctrinated into a philosophy that they don't believe in and that really find offensive, they can get motivated. So we have two motivating forces. The system reached such a level of dysfunction that eventually has to crack. And 2 and 3 was we got the COVID break and we got the indoctrination break.
Yeah, to reiterate a little bit, it was interesting. I had a conversation with Jeff Canada, I'm sure most of you know Jeff Canada. If you don't, you should. He's certainly a hero in New York City. He started the Harlem Children's Zone, and maybe the smartest educator I've ever met. And I was asking him, and he's like, at our Robin Hood board meeting, he's like, guys, you guys don't understand. There is a Category 5, Category 6 hurricane coming, and it's the fact that we had all our kids out of school doing shitty remote for 18 months during COVID, and that nationwide, rich to poor, but certainly more exaggerated in poor, we're a grade and a half behind where we should be. And if you don't make that up, and it seems almost impossible to make it up, you're going to have a lost generation. He said in his 45 years, 50 years of being an educator, this is the thing he's been the most concerned about. And so it probably does become a war cry for God's sakes, because the charter schools went back to school.
Catholic schools are open too.
Yeah. All right, we're running out of time. We got a little bit more time. Troy, what's your hope? How are you gonna send me? You give us a little bit of AI, which I think is real, or can be real. How do you see the political sand shifting?
I think what I saw in Philadelphia, I sat down with a lot of people who actually, state legislatures that came from the neighborhood where these schools are. And, I thought it was going to be a layup because you had some schools that literally had 0 kids at reading level, 0 kids at math, at proficient in math. And you think it's going to be an easy conversation. But I think, sunlight is the best disinfectant, and a lot of these issues don't make it to the neighborhoods that these people serve. And when it does make it there, is not messaged in a way that's clear to people for them to understand. And so I think a lot of people have been in this school choice fight for so long that the language stays the same and the strategy stays the same. And what I noticed is the how sophisticated the teachers union is, and they have a well-oiled machine. Incredible at messaging, incredible at mobilization, and I think in order for this to be effective, you got to be able to have that level of team on the other side and that level of organization on the other side, and so I think it's just so I'm not optimistic at all. So I won't sit here and lie and say that I'm optimistic about it. But what I will say is I think that, Jeff and I were talking earlier about Pennsylvania being about 50-50. I would say probably I'm a little bit more optimistic. I would say about 70-30. And but I think in order to get that 30, just a lot of work needs to be done on the ground in these communities. Because I think if the parents are clear and the parents know, this thing can turn like this. But I think that's where I've seen the gap.
Troy is talking about lifeline scholarships in Pennsylvania. There was a proposal, $100 million to give $10,000 basically to 10,000 poorest kids in the worst schools in the state of Pennsylvania. Most of them are in Philadelphia. The governor, a Democrat, said that he would be for it. He campaigned on it. It went to the state house where the Democrats have a 1-seat advantage, and they they wouldn't pass it, and then it got into the bill, and with Republican resistance, and he vetoed it. So after that line item, so this was a free $100 million. This was extra money that the Republicans were willing to give the Democrats for this proposal. So it never in American history, correct me if I'm wrong, John out there, has a Democrat ever said no to a spending plan, and this was free money, and they said no. Because they know if there's any competition, if any of these kids escape their horrible system, the whole thing will come crumbling down.
And let me elaborate on this too, because in the whole thing about them saying no, so where I literally sat in a room with these state legislators, and I'll tell you exactly what they told me. A few of them told me, you know what, if I want to do this, I would never send my kids, to these schools. So I would be a hypocrite to say, that I would vote for that I would vote against it. But if I do this, either the school teachers, the union's going to primary me. Then they said the leadership, the Democratic caucus will take away my committee assignments if I go up against them. And one guy even said that they would take away his 10 by 10 office. So when you think about, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of kids that are in these failing schools, and these people are thinking about committee seats and having a physical office right now. So these are the trade-offs. The one guy who stood up in Pennsylvania last time, the union, they tried to primary him. They spent, I think $100,000 on a $20,000 race. And so they scared everybody off. So it's like, it is, if they wanted to get it done, everybody, what my feedback from that I got, you got quite a few people that want to get this done, that know they should get it done, but they won't get it done for the wrong reasons. For the completely the wrong reasons. So I think the teachers union, they do what they do, and that's their business. That's their business. But with these state legislators, that's their damn jobs. They should be doing their jobs. And so I think as much light that can be shed on the reasons why these people are making these decisions, and calling these people out, whether it's Jordan Harris, whether it's Joanna McClinton, whether it's Senator Vincent Hughes, who in Pennsylvania sends his own kids to private school. He sends his kids to private school. Not one of those people in there send their kids to one of these. Each person I sat with, I asked them where did they send their kids to school, or where did they go to school, and you know the answer. None of them send their kids to those schools.
Yeah, it's a fun fact.
Yeah, no. Listen, in New York, I was sitting with Jamal Crawford, the guy who pulled the fire alarm. He is maybe the most progressive of
To open the door, you mean?
Not to open the door. And his kids go to a $70,000 a year school. They get scholarships, but they go to private school, one of the best in the city. I was like, of course they do. I'll tell two quick vignettes. We had a new mayor a few years ago, Mayor Adams, and he ran as a centrist. And there's not a lot of centrists that run, and he won. The mayor of New York, one of the biggest jobs in the country. And before he was taken office, we had dinner with him, Mel Carter, my friend, and me, and a few people. And I said, Mayor, you want to be president one day? Like, stay in the center, go after the teachers union. And his aide, who was sitting 2 seats over, who actually looked a lot like you, grabbed his heart and started convulsing. And I thought he was going to have a heart attack. He's like, just shut up, like revolution.
Well, these state legislators that you're talking about, they want to keep their jobs. So the way to have them keep their jobs is have voters say, if you don't give me school choice, I'm going to vote you out. And I'm going to primary you. You can still be a Democrat, but I'm going to put a pro-school choice a Democrat against you. So the democracy in America, in this case, unfortunately does work. The people who are getting screwed by this system are not voting against it. So we got to get them to vote for it. And one way to get them to vote for it, I thought, was, well, here's $250,000 when you graduate. I would think that would be your highest priority when you vote.
Best idea ever today.
Yeah. Ava Moskowitz, who runs the Success Academy, has 15,000 kids. She marched them across the Brooklyn Bridge one year to show support for charter schools, and it was amazing. There was like 10,000 kids and 10,000 parents walking for charter schools. And then she told me almost all their parents voted for de Blasio, who was the mayor at the time. And de Blasio existed for one reason, and that was to shut down charter schools. So we have not made the connection between this is your self-interest. You live in a charter school. Your whole life is different because of it. And then when you go to the voting booth, you vote for the guy who wants to shut it down. That's what we got to work on. That's what we got to get the word out, and we got to motivate those voters. And the legislatures will listen to us.
All right, Troy, you are the marketing guru, the music man. Like, I was reading your resume. I was like, this guy is perfect to consult or run a movement. And so what's your idea on how to do what Jeff's just asking? How do you change the hearts and minds of Democratic voters?
I think it's starting to shift, though. Like, first of all, if you would have told me even a year ago that it would be me and a bunch of Republicans trying to fix something for people in the neighborhood I grew up in, I would have thought you would be lying. But I think what's happening right now, and what we're seeing is that, and I'm just going to be very unfiltered. One of the things from a trend perspective that we're seeing is our party has really taken the black vote for granted. And when you, and I deal in a lot of national politics and supported a lot of campaigns over the years, and friends with a lot of people in office, and I've had these conversations recently. And because one of the things that I've heard a lot from just being on the ground is going to be an unprecedented amount of votes from black males, and I'm not talking about rich black males, by the way. I'm talking about people in my neighborhood and Brooklyn, Detroit, all of these different places that are now seeing, okay, you know what? Maybe it's not in maybe they're not always in our best interests, because everybody, we all want the same things, like, fundamentally. Everybody wants to feel safe, no matter what people think. Everybody wants to feel safe. Everybody wants to have an opportunity. Everybody wants whatever their version of an American dream may look like. Everybody wants to be able to provide for their family. Nobody wants to be in debt. And right now we're at a place where people's lives, with inflation, is all of these things now that where is this discomfort. And when you're seeing people, we've seen a couple of really key Democrats start either become independents or shifted to the Republican Party. And education is going to be a lightning rod issue. It really is, because the same way, like when it's just a matter of the issue surfacing. So in this particular bill in Pennsylvania, I call friends who are, come from Philly, have built successful businesses, other black business people who have moved to California, and I told them about the issue. Not one of them knew about the issue. Like, but once people become aware of it, they become infuriated. So I think it's becoming aware. And then the last thing I would say is, going to the marketing question, is that, in our business, we when we talk to artists about making songs or whatever else, it's like you make a hook that people can sing along to. or you make a melody that people can sing along to. Even if you don't know the lyrics, you know the melody, right? And so I think the melodies in the school choice movement they're very hard to remember. There's too many lyrics. Make a simple hook.
Tell me something. We're out of time. I was going to give Jeff Yass the last word because his name is right there in the Yass Prize. But you're going to have to wait till tonight to hear him again. Guys, thank you so much. You guys, thank you.